Welcome back to Firestorm Games, and you're joining us as we take a look at one of Games Workshop's latest releases for Warhammer 40k, the Space Marine Gladiator. As always, we'll be building the model from this kit whilst talking about how it fares on the tabletop and how it looks before taking a look at the assembled model. So, let's get started. The Gladiator is the most recent addition to the Primaris Focus vehicles, however its structure is not entirely new. The Gladiator is to the Impulsor what the Predator is to the Rhino. Using the basic chassis of the Impulsor, the Gladiator sees the covering over of the open top passenger compartment at the rear, with the addition of some heavier weaponry. The Gladiator features a large turret positioned over the previous personnel area. While not being quite as big and bulky as a Repulsor or the Repulsor Executioner, the Gladiator's turret still brings to bear much heavier weapons than the Impulsor did. The three different weapon options available to the Gladiator split down into three distinct variants, each with its own battlefield role. The first of these is the Gladiator Lancer, featuring the heaviest weaponry of all the variants. The Lancer comes equipped with the long-barreled Lancer Laser Destroyer. This slightly lighter version of the Repulsor Executioner's heavy Laser Destroyer does see a reduction in the strength output and armor-piercing capabilities of its larger cousin, being 10 and -3 respectively. However, the other stat remains the same. With this heavy 2 weapon reaching up to 72 inches across the battlefield to deal D3+3 damage, you're still going to be able to take on your opponent's big guys. The Lancer also shares the Aquilian Optics rule, which grants +1 to hit with your main weapon. On top of the already decent 3+ ballistic skill, you should be hitting with most of your shots, even as the vehicle's effectiveness becomes diminished due to receiving damage. With these in mind, the Lancer is firmly situated within the extremely heavy sniper role. You want to park this vehicle in your backfield, ideally somewhere that has good sightlines to your opponent's vehicles, knights, and other monstrous creatures. Keeping it out of the way is especially important, as the Gladiator isn't a particularly tough nut to crack. While being slightly tougher than the Impulsor, it still only has toughness 8 with 12 wounds and a 3+ save, so you want to take advantage of that long reach to avoid any retaliation. While the Lancer also comes equipped with short-range sponson weapons, you are given the choice between Stormbolters or Fragstorm launchers here. These are only really effective against light infantry and are unlikely to find a use unless your opponent is allowed to get close. Next up we have the Gladiator Valiant, armed with a turret-mounted twin Last Talon along with 2 sponson-mounted multi-melters. Therefore, the Valiant takes on the position of a vehicle hunter. The Heavy 4, Strength 9, -3 AP and D6 damage Last Talon should be able to chew through lighter vehicles with ease, whilst also putting significant dents in your opponent's tougher tanks. Similarly, the 2 multi-melters will also be bringing 4 lower damage but higher AP hits to the party, with their damage output being boosted once you're up close and personal. Which is exactly where you'll want your Valiant to be. Now, while the Valiant brings to bear a much greater degree of ordnance than the Lancer, it doesn't have the luxury of sitting far back from the action. The relatively short range of 24 inches that the Valiant's weaponry sports means you will need to be much more careful with how you position it on the battlefield. If it's left too far from the action, it will be next to useless, but getting it up close and personal without screening infantry does leave the vehicle vulnerable to being charged. As such, you'll want to use it as a weapon support platform for your infantry. Keeping them close by should help to fend off enemy troops armed with anti-vehicle weapons. In turn, the Valiant can lend its formidable firepower to your squads should they come up against a particularly hard nut to crack. And that brings me to the final Gladiator variant, the Reaper. This tank's sole purpose is to turn your opponent's infantry into piles of mincemeat. Its main armament is the twin heavy Onslaught Gatling cannon. In addition to being quite a mouthful to say, this weapon can dish out a whopping 24 hits. Whilst it is only strength 6, -1 AP and 1 damage, this is more than enough to easily work its way through any hordes. This is paired up with the 2 sponson-mounted Tempest Bolters, which provide 8 additional strength 4 hits, which jumps to 16 if you're shooting within 15 inches. While not quite as strong as the Gatling cannon, when the 2 systems are combined they can expect to dish out between 32 and 40 attacks, hitting and wounding guardsman equivalent units on at least a 3+. However, whilst having a slightly longer range than the Valiant, the Reaper will still need to operate fairly close to the front line in order to reach its full potential. Again, this means that it will need some assistance. Whilst the squishier units are less problematic, the Valiant will struggle against tougher Terminator equivalent units. So, regardless of which Gladiator you choose from, they all share the same properties. For example, their movement value of 10 should help the vehicle to outpace most infantry-based units, and the extra options of taking heavy stubbers and rocket pods help to complement their firepower. Finally, an auto-launcher can be equipped to give you the option of making your Gladiator slightly tougher to hit at range. The Gladiator is very much a versatile vehicle. You can equip it in a number of different ways to help plug certain gaps in your list. Iron Hands will make particularly good use of these vehicles. Their softer shells are less of a problem when the vehicle can take a few more wounds before succumbing to any problems, and that's especially true when they can be repaired as well. Now this kit, as I've already mentioned, is built around the Impulsor set. In fact, you receive all the parts necessary to build an Impulsor, plus 2 additional sprues for the extra weapons and hull changes. This means that you get a few extra components to help pad out your bits box. But one of the nice things about the set is the fact that all the weapon options can be fairly simply magnetized, allowing you to switch at the variants as you see fit. Overall, it's a very nice kit which has those familiar throwbacks to the older Predator. And here we have the assembled Gladiator. Overall, it's a great way to help bulk out your heavier weapons in your Primus forces, without having to spend quite as many points as a Repulsor Executioner. If you're looking to pick this kit up for yourself, you'll be able to save yourself a little bit of money, as you'll find this kit with at least 10% off the RRP on the Firestorm Games webstore, which you can find a link to in the description below. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to leave your comments and subscribe to get up to date with all of our future videos. And so we just want to say a big thank you for watching this video, and we hope to see you again on Firestorm Games.